can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Joe Mindak of theconnective.me. Check it out. Before I formally introduce Joe, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. And since I know you have owned agencies and sold an agency, there's some interesting episode I did with Jason Swank where he talks about how he built his agency up, also how they're buying agencies and how he evaluates them. Todd Taskey's episode also talks about he helps agencies, kind of connects an agency to private equity. And he's got the Second Bite podcast. So you can check that out. And some other amazing connectors. When I think of you, Joe, and the connective.me, and I was checking out what you do, we're going to talk about how the model works and what you do there, which is pretty cool. I had interviewed Jason Gaynard a long time ago, who runs Mastermind Talks. And I also had Kevin Thompson on, who does events as well. So check those episodes out. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to your dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We help you run your podcast. You know, we are an easy button for a B2B business to launch and run your podcast. You know, for me, Joe, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I know you're the same because I've watched your videos online. And, you know, I found no better way to give to my relationships than to profile their company, what they're doing, and the people I admire on the show over the past decade. And, you know, shout from the rooftops and share what they're working on with everyone else. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com to learn more. And before introducing today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Nikki Fielding, you know, because if it weren't for Nikki, I would not have met Joe. So thank you, Nikki. She's CEO of Digital Brand Expressions. And she's been doing this for over, I don't want to age her, but over a couple decades. She's been doing this, and she does services like SEO, paid search, and she's worked with brands like Mitsubishi, Aleve, the Ritz-Carlton, Wall Street Journal. So I'm excited to have Joe Mindak. He's founder of The Connective, and he's helped to assemble a community of purpose-driven connectors, subject matter experts, entrepreneurs, and what they do is they help open the doors for each other, create value for one another. And he's started 7 businesses. Probably when you're listening to this, maybe there's over 7 businesses, but includes a marketing agency, a magazine, a beer company. And he has a software company as well called Nolodex that powers the Connective, and you can use it also. And he's going to talk about that. Joe, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, Jeremy, thanks so much for having me, and appreciate Nikki making the introduction here. So excited to chat with you today. Yeah, she's awesome.
Talk about the Connective.
Sure.
Where did the original idea come from?
So, you know, it's something I had kind of slowly worked on over the years. I had an agency, and we used to broker print. And then I said, you know, I don't want to do that anymore. And I just said to the print agencies and companies, said, look, if I send you a lead, how about, you know, send me a commission? And they were like, sure, you know, I'm happy to do that. So I didn't want to leave money on the table. So I got out of the brokering of the printing and just sent it to people, and I make a couple bucks here and there. And then when I sold the agency, I was always a connector. I was always the guy opening doors for people and making introductions to people. So when I sold my agency, people still called me. They're like, hey, Joe, I need a website. I need a video. I need whatever. And I said, okay, well, I don't do that anymore, but tell me a little bit about what it is that you need. And then based on what they gave me, I would say, all right, you know what, Jeremy, this agency would be perfect for you. I know this group. I've worked with them before. They're the best WordPress agency I know. And I make the introduction, and they were happy because they got an introduction to a great resource that could do a good job for them and do it well. And the agencies were happy because I just got them a $100,000 project, and just by making an introduction. So I started taking that same model and saying to the agencies, listen, how about I bring you some more business? And when I do that, you pay me a comfortable commission that you feel, you know, that with your margins, what you can give. And the agencies were more than happy to do that because they had no overhead as far as pay me a salary or you know, taxes, benefits, any of that as far as what you would have to pay a salesperson. If I brought them a piece of business and they closed the deal, they pay me a commission. So everyone was happy. So I did that the first year, and I kind of did it, you know, as I was growing the beer company. I was working on this wedding site I had, working on, and I did it kind of as a side gig, really, and I brought in $84,000 in commissions. So it wasn't a bad little side gig. And I said, well, what if I got a bunch of other people like myself that just love to sell, love to get out there and connect people, love to network, and let's bring them all together and figure out how do we bring in business, help each other get business, and then split up the commissions that come in. So that's really how the Connective was born.
I know when I was researching this, you have a bit of a selective process. How do you decide as far as membership goes?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to, everyone wants to build their own networking, right? Everyone wants to build a better mousetrap. We've all been in networking groups over the years, and B&I groups are great, right? I was in them for 10 years, and those are great to a certain point. But what I found was I wasn't getting the caliber of the people that I wanted to make the introductions that I was looking for, right? I was getting leads for a website for $1,000, where my agency was doing websites for $100,000. So it just wasn't the right, caliber for what it was. I think B&I is great for local, really local stuff, and I would always tell people to join a B&I group or a LaTip, whatever it might be. So I really wanted to bring in a different caliber of people, to bring in a different caliber of business. So we really wanted the vetting process to be, companies that were really kind of B2B focused, and really bringing us into entries into that mid-level size company that a couple $1 million plus company up to $100 million or so, that really are talking to the CEOs of the company or the CFOs, CMOs, and they have some money to spend, and that they're looking for a solution, not the cheapest person on the block. So originally I said, I'm going to invite 20 people that I really hold near and dear to my heart, that I've dealt with, I've been in business with. I know I could trust these people. They do a great job. And I'm going to be happy to introduce them to somebody, and they'll be happy to introduce the other people. Because if you're going to introduce somebody to your client, you better make sure they're going to make you look good, right? So I brought in those original 20 something people to join this and said, look, guys, here's what we're doing here. We're going to introduce each other. We're going to share commissions when those things come in. And then we're going to grow this group, organically, by all of us bringing other people in. So the Connective is only grown by people, members inviting other members. So it's an invite only type group. And then even when you're invited, we're going to vet you out, right? So we're going to bring you to a couple meetings. We're going to put you in a room with other members. They're going to talk to you and make sure that, hey, let's check this Jeremy guy out, make sure he's really legit, and how people act, right? A lot of it's just a gut call from the beginning. We have the members really say, I'm vouching for this person, but then it's a gut call to say, you know what, I had a really great one-on-one with this person in a breakout room, or, this person just dominated the conversation, wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. We don't want that type of person. So we go through, a couple phases of vetting people out. And we've had people call after the meeting and say, listen, I know this person. I've dealt with them in the past. I don't want them in the group. And that the members are the ones that call that out. So we've turned down probably a lot more people than we let in over the years.
And Joel, as far as networking groups go, everyone, there's different business models, and you've kind of taken a unique approach for the business model of the group as well. So I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. So, part of my problem, again, with being in other groups was, not so much the program or how they ran it or anything. It was just that I was always the guy giving the referrals. And at the end of the month, I would get this plaque that said, you gave out the most referrals, and they put it in a cheap $2 Michael frame, and I put it on stack with the other ones. Well, I wanted that business back, and I wasn't getting the referrals back. So I decided to say, look, I'll give you all the business you want, Jeremy, but you pay me for that. I have the people to introduce you to. And, the incentive wasn't there. When I go onto LinkedIn and say, Jeremy, can you introduce me to Nikki Fielding? You'd be like, Joe, I don't know. We met on a podcast. We met at some group a couple months ago. I don't know you well enough to introduce you to my person. So a lot of times on LinkedIn, I would just not get a response. So I said, well, hey, Jeremy, introduce me to Nikki, and you can make $10,000. That changes your tune, right? So I decided to say, bring people in and say, listen, when you make an introduction that leads to business, you will get 50% of whatever that commission comes out to be. Now people are looking at it a little different way. Wait a second, I'm going to make an introduction. Whatever I make, I want to partner with everybody. I didn't want to say, hey, Joe Mindak's going to take all the money. No, Jeremy, it's your connection. Nikki. You get the introduction for me. I've been trying to get into her business for a while. I can't get a meeting. You get it for me. Great. You get it for me, and we bring in 10 grand. You get 5, I get 5. We bring in 100 grand. You get 50, I get 50. So really the model is, don't worry about if you're not giving out referrals. I don't care if you ever give me a referral back, because when I give you one, I'm getting paid for it. And that changes the whole dynamic of how you're networking, right? So it's really been a really good platform. People are really happy with it. We have people in the group that may not close a piece of business for their company for a whole year, but you know what? They made $30,000 in giving out referrals to everyone else in the group. So it's that two-way street that really works well.
So does a portion then go to the person and the portion then goes to the group, the connective?
Exactly, yeah. And then we have people that run the chapters that get a portion as well, because the way, again, we want to grow this organically is to open up in different markets and say, all right, Jeremy, you're in the Philadelphia market. You open up, you bring your network to the table. And for that, you're going to get paid to do that as well. And we'll partner up with you. And that's the way you really make sure that they're bringing the right people in. They're not just bringing people in. Again, we want to protect the reputation of the group and the people we bring in. And their job is to bring people in. We'll build the whole back end. We take care of all the business side of it. Invoicing, contracts, everything is done on our end with our platform. You just go out and bring in a really good group of people to your chapter.
I mentioned, Nolodex, and people can check it out, Nolodex.com, Nolodex.com. And the Connective is powered by Nolodex, and people can also use that as a separate software. But talk about, starting a whole separate software company is a big ordeal, right? So talk about how it's powering the Connective.
Yeah. So when I started the Connective, and when it was the first 20 people, it was easy. Put an Excel file and let's see who Larry introduced. And that's one thing. When you're at now, we're close to 150, 160 people, and by next year we'll be well over 500 people. That's a little harder to keep track of. So I looked for different softwares. Method was the one I looked at first. That's why our email is our domain is theconnective.me, because that's what we set it up on originally. It was Method. It worked somewhat, but it didn't have everything we wanted. I found a place up in Canada, another anyway, just like most people, like a company tries to find a software that can run what they wanted to do, and I just couldn't find something that did everything. So I said, all right, I'm just going to build it myself. So we built the MVP. Pierce built it for us last year, and it works, right? It works great, and it keeps track of all the referrals. It calculates the commissions automatically, sends out the invoices automatically. It does a lot. But we need it to run a little bit better, right? We're driving a Honda right now. We need to drive a Ferrari. So we're building that Ferrari now, and that's going to power the Connective as we grow. But also as we're building it, we said, you know what? There's a lot of other networking groups out there that want a software to run their group, right? So our software is very customizable. You could take it and run your BNI group and run it more efficiently with all the calendar invites are in there. Zoom is right on the platform. Slack is right on the platform. All those features. We have a CRM system all built into one platform. So you could successfully run your networking group through this platform. And we haven't seen anything out there that's running everything on one platform, right? So part of it is, hey, if you want to run your networking group, you could use this. The other part is, if you want to actually take your networking group now and share commissions like we're doing and use the model that we've built, you can do that as well. And you could customize it any way you want. If you want to split it 80-20, you want to split it 70-30, you do the splits however you want. But now a person can come in and say, I've always wanted to run my own networking group. I didn't have the right tools to do it. Great. For $100 a month, you could use our software and start your own networking group. And then you could charge $100 a month for members. So if you got 40 members, you could bring in $4,000 a month to your own networking group. Now you're making $50-something thousand a year just running your group. You're front and center running the group. So your business is front and center in front of all these people. And then you could also bring in commissions. If commissions, say $100,000 in commissions come in the group and you're splitting that, you made another 50 grand, or you could do it any other way you want. And then the other thing that we do, it's multi-tenancy. So we could have different tenants. So you could be part of this group that you're running, right? Jeremy's networking group, but also you might be part of the Columbia Alumni Association. So now you could go in your alumni association and say, all right, I want a website, or I want IT, I want whatever service I'm looking for. Great. Hire someone that's a Columbia grad, and then part of that commission goes to the Alumni Association, or part of it goes to your charity, the Boys and Girls Club, whatever you want to use this for. You could use this software to do anything you want. So you could raise money for charities. You could do. I'm on a board of a hospital. Like, there's 35 members that are pretty high up in business on this board. We should all be connecting to each other for what we need, and then a portion or all of it, if you want. Anything that comes in a commission can go right to the hospital, right? We're there to raise money. So why not? If I need a website, I'm going to spend $100 grand on a website, I might as well find somebody that's on this platform that $10,000 will be donated to the hospital for that. So there's a ton of different uses for the software. So
What were the
we're
core
excited.
features, Joe, that you were looking for early on when you were creating this
Well, one of the
that
main
you
things
couldn't find?
one of the main things was, the fintech part of it, right? So, over the years, earlier on, 10 years ago, people didn't want to transfer money across, websites and platforms. Now that's gotten a lot more secure and all that. So we couldn't find a platform that we could actually calculate all the commissions, right? Something to track all the referrals and like a CRM system to say, hey, Jeremy, you got a lead, last month. What's going on with that? Oh, so this thing automatically sends a note to you, says, hey, did you follow up that person? And then if a deal closes, the system automatically calculates out of all the different members and all the 7%, 8%, 5.5%, it calculates the commissions. Then it actually takes those commissions and splits it to whoever it goes to, right? So if you're doing a charity and you're like, oh, 80% goes to charity, great. It'll take that $100, give $80 to charity, 20 bucks to you. It automatically does everything. So we couldn't find a platform with that financial tech in the background that could do that. So one of the main features was that. And then we just really couldn't find something that did everything, right? We use Google Calendar, which is a horrible system. I don't know how Google's calendar is so bad, but we use one calendar system, and then you have Slack, and then you have to go into Zoom or Teams or this or that. It's like there's 7 different things you got to do to run this. No, come here, go to Nolodex, and everything you want is right on that platform. Invite people to a meeting, have the meeting right on the platform in Zoom, have a Slack channel for anything that people want, have a CRM to track all your referrals or once you've given or received. And then when you close that deal, close it on the platform, pay it on the platform, collect your money on the platform.
So it seemed like initially the having a CRM and then be able to calculate commissions and pay out the commissions was a pain point. And then you realized, well, we're using these other systems. So now, you can create the calendar through there and then connect the Zoom through there and do the chat through there.
Yeah, I mean, the one platform I found that was pretty good out of Canada was great. And they're like, well, yeah, we could customize it for you. It's going to be $30,000 to customize it, and then you could pay us a licensing fee of $10,000 a month to use our platform to go out and use it. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you 30 grand and another 120 grand to license this thing to use it. I'm going to take 150 grand to build my own platform, right? So part of it was that there was nothing that had everything in it, right, that we needed. I think that was probably the biggest part. To say, hey, let's just build this thing as best we can with every feature that someone would need in a networking group.
At the core of the Connective is obviously connecting people and having people help each other and make introductions. What have you found that helps make it easy for people to make introductions? Because I think some people, I know for me, I maybe make 5 to 30 introductions in a day. Okay. And that's just top of mind. I'm always trying to do that. It's not always natural for someone to do those things. So what are some of the maybe mistakes people make when making connections, or what have you found that helps make it easy for people to connect others together?
Well, not everyone's a salesperson, right? So to be a really good connector, typically you're a pretty good salesperson. You're a person that's always talking and loving to talk to people. You're very extroverted, right? I'm not, obviously, but no. But people come in like, I don't do things that way, right? I don't do things that way. Nikki was like, I don't run business this way. I don't connect. And now she's, one of the best members of the group, and she's learned to do it. So we all along the way, we try and teach people different ways to, keep their ears open on how you could connect, who you could introduce each other to. And sometimes it's not that you're that person outwardly like you making 5 to 30 connections a day. You don't really do that. So we help you do that, right? So we'll go on to LinkedIn and say, listen, we have a new member come in and say, hey, here, give us a list of companies that you're trying to break into, and give us specifically the person you want to talk to at that company, and we'll find the connection for you, right? So we facilitate a lot of that. So we do what's called a hot list, and we'll say, listen, send over 20 companies you want to break into, and send over the CMOs of those companies that and then send it to us, and we'll go through that list and see who in the Connective has a connection to either that person directly or has into that company through somebody else, right? So Nikki actually just introduced Young, one of our members, sent over hot list, and he was trying to get to the CEO of this company. I didn't know the CEO, but Nikki knew the head of marketing very well, so she was able to hit up the head of marketing who introduced him to the right person at the company. And now Young is doing business with that person, right? So we try and find ways to connect. We don't just sit here and say, hey, come to our meetings and hopefully you'll connect with somebody. Like, we're doing some proactive things to make sure that people are getting those introductions done. So even if you're a very introverted person and don't like to make connections, I'll send you a note and say, hey, Larry, you're connected to, Joe Smith on LinkedIn. Do you know that person well? Yeah, I went to college with Joe. I talk to him once a week. Oh, great. Can you make an introduction? And the one thing we do is warm introductions to somebody that wants to talk to you. So even if you know Joe Smith, I'll say, Larry, do you know him well? Yes. Is he looking for a new IT solution? So you'll reach out to him and say, hey, Joe, listen, I got this company wants to talk to you about IT. Is that something? Oh, yeah, Larry, actually, you know what? Our IT company sucks and we're really looking for a new one. I'd love to talk to that person. That's when we make the introduction. So we're teaching everyone to not just throw out BS introductions just because you might know somebody. We want to introduce you to somebody that you know well that wants to talk to the other person about what they're selling, right? We don't want to force any leads because that never works, right? So if I'm giving you a warm referral to my college roommate that wants to talk to you about Rise 25, specifically, they're looking to start a podcast, that's a great referral for you. And the close rate is going to be a lot higher.
Yeah, you kind of answered the next question I was going to ask, which is, what do you recommend from an outreach message? And I do the same thing, which is a double opt-in intro. So because you don't want to introduce someone just randomly. I've gotten those. You've probably gotten them.
Sure.
Well, I didn't even agree to talk to this person. So I was going to ask you a recommended outreach, but which is, it sounds like Nick, you would just, say to the person, hey, here's this person, here's their service. If you're looking for it, cool, I can introduce you. If you're not, that's fine too. Just let me know. Like that, just making sure it's a fit, that you're not just going to introduce people without them wanting to be introduced. So it sounds like you're basically reaching out, having the people reach out first and say, is this even something you're interested in? If so, I can make an introduction. If not. Is that accurate?
Exactly? So you don't want to, forcing introductions never works, right? Like when I started this, I had someone want to talk to my buddy who is a CEO of a company, and don't name the company, but it was like, hey, I want to talk to him about, it was call center services, and I talked to him. I went to college with him. I said, Jim, hey, he lived on my floor. We knew each other well in college. I said, Jim, listen, guy wants to talk to you about call center service. He's like, no, you know what? We use local people, part of our strategy to give back to local community. We only use local people for that type of service. Great. And the person was like, well, can you just make an introduction for me? I said, no, he doesn't. This is part of their thing. They've decided on this. I don't want to, because I want to call that Jim for something else down the road, right? That he may want. And I say, hey, Jim, listen, somebody wants to talk about SEO. I have this woman, Nikki, she wants to talk to you. Oh, we're looking for an SEO company. That's when the introduction comes in and makes it a lot better. Mm-hmm. So, and we make sure that people, you got to have some sort of need, right? Why do you want to talk to that person? What's your value proposition that person will want to talk to you? Well, hey, Larry, listen, are you having trouble getting new clients? Are you having trouble with your profitability? Oh yeah, Joe, you know what? We can't figure out which products are selling better and which ones will make the most profit on. I would love someone to come in and tell me how I could be more profitable. Great. Let me make the introduction then. So we want to make sure everyone has like a little blurb that could send out for you to say, hey, Larry wants to talk to you about this. Is that something you're having, a pain point on and you want someone to solve it for, right? That's all sales. So yeah, we want everyone to have something ready to go. It's when they're going to make that introduction for each other.
What are other mistakes people? I was actually just listening to Joe Polish, who runs Genius Network, his book on what's in it for them. It's really good about just, I don't know. I always love learning about what other people are doing to add value to other people. And so it's a great book. What are other mistakes people make when forming relationships? And one we just talked about, connecting people without approval, not doing a double opt-in, right? Mm-hmm. What are other mistakes you see people making when, connecting or making introductions?
Well, you don't want to be selling at people. You want to be selling through people, right? I'm like, hey, Larry, buy my services, buy my, hey, Joe, listen, push, this is what I do. I sell websites, buy my website. No, you want to tell those people, this is what I do. And this is the value I could bring to your clients, right? Because a lot of time, if you can bring a value to your client and they come back and thank you, hey, Larry, thank you so much for introducing me to that. Chris, you introduced me to this person. They've done a great job. I'm really happy. They're going to come back to you again and again for other services, right? And with us, it works great because if they keep coming back to you, you're getting that commission on each time they come back to you for a resource, right? So not selling at somebody and just trying to push your services on another member or somebody that's going to be someone that wants to introduce you to somebody else. They're going to sell through. You want to sell through them to say, hey, here's the tools. You could sell my services to your clients and other people too, right? So a lot of times people are just trying to cram a sale down your throat. It's like, no, I'm here. We're all here to help each other open doors. Not me. I'm not. Don't try and sell me. We'll use each other for services if we need it, but don't try and sell at the person you're talking to, right? We're all in this group together to open doors. How can I open a door? And what's the best way I could open that door for you? Give me the tools to make sure I could open that door when it's the time to do it.
Another one that you just mentioned that made me think of, Joe, is gratitude and thanking people. I oftentimes, just following up and saying, how'd that go? Thank you for referring, or, just following up on something is key. There's so many times while, make an introduction, then a few times people are like, hey, thank you. Like later on, this is like actually informing me how it went, just giving me an update.
Yeah. No, it's the simplest things are sometimes missed by people, like in the thank you. I mean, I'll send thank you notes out handwritten, and nobody gets that these days, right? And that's a huge thing. Somebody gets it, like, wow, that was really nice to do that. Just having a thank you is good. I had one of my friends I connected, again, without mentioning names of companies or anything, it was a friend of mine that was looking for a service. I connected the guy. It's a $75,000 project, and all he said to me was how he lost money on the deal several times. And I said, listen, if I'm bringing you a $75,000 project, if you can't figure out how to make money off it, it's not a gazillion dollars, but it should be a decent sized project for you. And don't keep telling me how you lost money. Just how about a thank you? How about I don't care if you lost money, that's your fault, your business. Maybe you should get out of the business, but not even a thank you, more of like a, hey, like
the opposite.
It was like a hindrance that I gave him. I said, you know what, that person will never get another phone call from me again,
ever.
Or
the person's trying to encourage referrals and complaining about a referral. Yeah. That's going to induce the opposite activity from you.
But a thank you to somebody. I just, I have something I'm trying to get done with the play that I wrote, and I met the guy recently a couple of months ago, and he's got the introduction to connect me to somebody. I thanked him for his time a few times. I said, I just really appreciate you, someone like you, having the connections you have to take time to speak to somebody like me. I really appreciate that. And, you're, how I look up to him and his career and what he's done. It's very impressive. And just the fact that you're taking time to help someone like me out, I really appreciate that. And, I think that goes a long way, right? Somebody's sticking their neck out for you. You want to thank them for it. So
I want to take, all of your career path has kind of led you to what you're doing now. And you've had a really interesting career path with, like we mentioned, the brewery, the magazine, the agency. So I want, with Tisha Creative, I always love talking to agency owners who start in the mid 90s, because the landscape was so different than it is now. Talk about like what was when you were, again, the idea behind starting the agency, and then you eventually sold it. So I'd love to hear about how that came about.
Yeah, so I just, I got out of college. I went to school, University of Dayton out in Ohio, and I came back. The Flyers, right? Yeah. So I was, I was originally business major, and I switched to education because I wanted to teach. And then by the time I got out, I was like, I had a pretty good resume with all the stuff I had done in college. I'm like, I should make some money first, then I'll go back to teaching, which I eventually did. Last year I started teaching, but I got home and I was going to be a sales guy, right? Obviously, I was either going to be a sales guy or a politician, right? So I became a sales guy, but I couldn't get a job, right? I was coming back to the city, going to Manhattan and interviewing, and nobody would hire me without a year experience. So at the time, my dad had a small printing company. That was Tisha Industries, right? My mom's name is Tisha. That's where the name comes from. And so my dad had a small print shop. It was my dad, right? My uncle worked for him for a couple of years, but basically it was my dad. And he was like the best sales guy ever. Like he could sell anybody, anything. And he did great with that. Then he would actually do the printing himself. But at that point in the mid 90s, Kinko's came out, computers were coming out, personal printers at home. Like people go to Kinko's and print 1,000 letterheads for $20 instead of going to a printer. So my dad wasn't doing as well. He wasn't going up, that's for sure. The hockey stick was turned the other way. And so I said, Dad, listen, why don't I can't get a job. I'm living at home. give me $20 a week so I could go out and buy some beers and I'll go sell for you and get my experience. So that's what I did. So I sold for a year and got it under my belt. And then after a year, I was like, well, you know what, Dad? I said, why are we going to go out? Why am I going to go get a job with Jeremy and sell for him and make 7% commission when I could just do it myself? So that's how I got involved. So we took out a small loan for $50,000 to buy buy bigger machinery and grow this thing. I said, Dad, we got to grow. We can't be printing business cards and letterheads. We got to print brochures and all that. So we did that, and we went from a $250,000 print shop to a $3 million agency in the course of about 3-4 years. So that's really how it started, and it was just really me selling and us figuring out how to do what we were selling, right? So
how were you selling at the time, Joe? Were you calling people? Were you knocking on doors? What were you? Because we're talking like 1996. Like people aren't really using email at this point. So what were you doing?
I was using, and I just taught my kids that I teach my entrepreneurship class at Stevens this. I said, you know how LinkedIn started, right? And I don't know this is necessarily how it started, but we used to have a book that was all the people from University of Dayton. You would buy the alumni directory, right? And it told you who was in marketing, who was in this, and you would go through that book and look up people. I'm like, oh, Jeremy, I went to school with him. He's in marketing now. Hey, Jeremy, it's Joe Mindak. We went to school together. Do you do so a lot of it was finding those, instead of cold calling, which works to a certain extent, but at that point it was still working. But I was cold calling, but more warm calling.
No, very precise.
Hey, Jeremy, you went to UD too. Yeah, you remember you were 96, I was 95. Yeah, oh yeah, I remember. And then so making those connections and introductions. So that's how I was trying to get into people and really get out and network.
That's smart,
right? I joined a B&I group. I would go to any meeting I could get to. So it was just really selling into those places. Then once you meet a couple clients, they introduce you. Then it was referrals. Then I was like, oh wow, this referral thing is great. So that's how I started really becoming a connector. So we grew the agency to a nice size, and then as things grew, right, emails came out, the websites got bigger. Oh, we better start doing websites. Oh, well, we better start doing email. Oh, and I would just hire people that knew what the hell they were doing in those aspects, and then I would go out and sell whatever was new, right? I was just telling Nikki that I didn't know what SEO was. Somebody's like, do you guys do SEO? I was like, of course we do. That's one of the services we offer. And I hung up the phone and called my creative director, like, Kevin, do we do SEO? He goes, yeah. I go, what is that? He goes, search engine optimization. This was like 2008 or something like that. And SEO was just getting popular. So, we just kind of grew with the times and sold whatever, just added the right people to, I would always hire really good people that knew what they were doing, right? And then it was easy for me to sell that.
I love how you stuck in your superpower and sweet spot, right? It's like you were selling, you weren't going to try and figure out how to do it. You were just going to hire the pros that knew it and just stuck in what you do best.
Yeah, because if I got the right people to do a good job, and I could get to the person. I knew how to do that. I knew how to get in the door and say, listen, Jeremy, we're the best in SEO right now. Oh, you are? Yeah, let me introduce you to this person. And I told my wife recently, I said, do you know who the best person at my agency was? The salesperson? She goes, yeah, you were. I go, no, Simon was. Simon was my developer, right? So I would bring in people that needed a website, really high-end, sophisticated website. I could get them in the door, do my little song and dance, and be like, oh, come on. Then when I get them to the office and they meet Kevin, the creative director, okay, I got that. Then they start talking to Simon about the technical aspects of what they need to build. They would be like, is that guy going to be on my project? I'm like, yeah, he's the head developer. Okay, we're hiring you guys now. So they wanted the smart person, right? I was a sales guy, right? They wanted to talk to somebody and make sure that, they knew they were going to get what they were looking for. Like, I need this thing to be built that could do this, and that guy's going to build it. So that, having the right people and the people that could, make me look good once I sold the thing was great. Then it was easy to do that. So,
yeah, John, I want to hear about how the sale came about. And I love hearing about the evolution of the services, right? Because it started off with, business cards, printing, brochures, then kind of went to websites, and then the email and SEO. And as a new thing came up, you were kind of adding these suite of services on. How did it eventually the sale come about?
So back in 2007, I bought my partners out, and I was like, I'm going to sell the agency. We're at our height, we're doing about $3 million. And I was like, I could sell this for a decent amount. Came down to two agencies. I had a buyer, and the buyer chose the other agency. The other agency had a lot more healthcare experience than we did. So that's why we lost out. He liked us, we're neck and neck, and just that was the line in the sand, which one he would go with. So this guy, his name was Daz, and he went with the other agency. About 5-6 years later, he called me, said, "Hey, what are you doing, Joe?" I said, "Not Daz, how you doing?" "Good, yeah, I remember you, all that stuff." Because the other agency went south. It folded. So he's like, "I should have bought you guys because we were still going." The other agency folded. But he became a business broker. He's like, "I sell businesses now." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." He says, "Do you want to sell your business?" And I was like, I don't know that I have anything to sell, Daz. I said, we're doing, and this was now probably 2009, 2010, after the whole economy took a tank and marketing was down. So our sales were down and all that, but we had started the magazine, and I said, no, this was probably, I'm sorry, more like 2000, probably 12, I think 12 or 14. So I said, listen, we're doing okay. We weren't doing as good as we once were when you went to buy us, but take a look. I don't know. I'd be interested to see. So, you're running your agency, not really paying attention to the finances, in depth, because we're spending money on different things, and you're running things through the business, whatever. So he comes in and pulls all the numbers out, and I'm like, wow, if you really pull out this and that, we have something to sell. So I said, all right, you know what? Put it up on the market. So we put it up as a joint purchase. You get the magazine and the agency, because the agency the magazine was actually driving traffic to the agency, because we made this beautiful magazine, really high end magazine, because all the people in Hoboken were marketing professionals or young professionals working in companies or starting companies. So they would get our magazine and call us for our creative services. So anyway, the magazine drove traffic to the thing. So we wound up putting them both up, and all of a sudden we're getting people interested, and on both or joint, whatever. And then I wound up selling them separately. We actually had a digital marketing agency in Hoboken, a guy I knew, and he had bought the agency. And then actually my original publisher on the magazine, Chris Halloran, just happened to text me. He says, "Hey, look, I lost my publishing gig in the city, the magazine. Do you have any work for me?" And I said, "Actually, I might have something interesting for you." So he came, I met with him and had a beer, and I said, "Listen, we're selling the magazine. Nobody knows that. If you're interested, I'll let you know what we're selling it for. And if you could, I made a sweeter deal with him because he really loved the magazine. So I was able to sell it to somebody that I really, trusted and knew they were going to take care of it, because that was our baby. We really started that thing from scratch. And so Chris ran it for the last 5-6 years. He only shut it down because of the pandemic, and it was all local advertising, and just, you can't charge people to advertise when their business is shut down. So, but he did a good job, ran it, like I said, 5 or 6 years after I sold it. So, yeah, so it came out all right.
Interesting journey.
Yeah.
I want to talk about future generations. So you are adjunct instructor, and you teach, entrepreneurship, innovation. What are some of the things you're teaching now, and what's the questions you're getting from the students?
Well, I think a lot of it is just this confidence level of like, how do you do that? How do I start? How do I even start a business? Like they're like, I have an idea, but I don't know where to ever begin. And you got to understand it. It starts somewhere small, right? You don't have to start big, right? So 2 things I showed them. One was the magazine. I said, "Do you guys know how I started this magazine?" He's like, "No." And I showed them the magazine. They're like, "This is a beautiful magazine. It must have cost $1 million to start it." I said, "Guys, it cost me $3,000, $3,000. I started the magazine with. That's all the money I ever put into it." Right. The other way, the way I started it was I needed $12,000 to print the first issue. So I said, you know what I did? I went to every store on Washington Street in Hoboken and everywhere in town and printed out with that $3,000. We printed some marketing kits and I went and knocked on every door and banged on every store and said, "Do you want to buy an ad in this magazine that I'm going to produce?" And I sold $12,000 worth of advertising. I took that money and paid for the first print run of the magazine. So I said, so that's just tenacity and getting out there and doing it. You have something go out and sell it, go out and do it. And I said, the other thing that came from that was, and I just showed them recently in class, we did a music festival. So the first music festival was one guy with an acoustic guitar with a little banner on a 1-foot stage. I said, "Look at how cool this music festival is," right? I showed them the video. They were like, "Yeah, whatever." And then I showed them the festival 3 years later with a big stage on Pier A, 10 bands, beer garden, 5,000 people there. I said, something starts small, right? This thing was $2,500 budget that we had sold for sponsorships that paid, Ray $200 to play that day, $100 band. But then it came into $100,000 music festival where we paid the band $35,000 to play. So, we got to start somewhere, start small. You don't need to start, huge. You got to start and get it out there and then work hard, right? I mean, like anything, if you work harder than everyone else, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I love it. I'm curious, are there any good ideas that have come out of the class? So start small. And really what you did was you pre-sold it. So your risk was low. I mean, you put some time and you put a little bit of money in, but you weren't going to go out and create like 100,000, print 100,000 magazines before you sold it, right? And so you really pre-sold it. So you minimize your risk. Because some people, Joe, that's what they do. They go out and they just go all in and they haven't sold anything yet from it.
Yeah, no,
you got a proof of concept first.
Yeah, and every company I started, I started small. Even the Connective, I didn't put a lot of money into this. At that time I could, but I didn't. Right, I put about $5,000 to start what you see today, right? Which is a nice size company. You don't need to put a ton of dough in it. You just be smart about how you're going to do it, right? I have a friend that just put over $1 million into his first business to get in all this debt. You got to start selling. You got to sell a lot of cheeseburgers to pay the rent, and he doesn't have but I'm saying, but like you put yourself in that debt to start. Now you got to pay all that money back. So it's going to take you 5 years before you start making money because you just you don't want to go into something that's going to cost you a lot. So I always try and start it small and see if it works first. Right? We built out this MVP. Let's see if it works. Let's see if we get traction. And we did. And now let's continue on and go to the next phase. But we're raising money now for the company, but because we've proven the concept that, now we're just raising money to accelerate growth, so.
It's easier to raise money when you have revenue.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Than an idea.
Joe, first of all, I just want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone should check out theconnective.me and check out Nolodex.com. To learn more and check out more episodes of InspiredInsider.com. And Joe, thanks for sharing your stories and your knowledge with everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Jeremy, thanks so much for having me. This is great. I really appreciate it.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.